Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Get ready to pay more for parking in San Diego. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and starting next month, prices will increase around Petco Park during special events. And plans to charge for parking in Balboa Park are moving forward. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says there's a long list of maintenance needs waiting for that funding.
For years, San Diego has offered a free tram service that circulates throughout Balboa Park. The city is planning to expand the tram's operating hours this year using revenue from paid parking. As soon as October, the city plans to install parking meters on 6th Avenue and Park Boulevard. Soon, the city council will also vote on charging for the parking lots. And there's no shortage of ideas on how to spend the revenue.
So there's the day-to-day maintenance needs of the park, right? And then that doesn't even take into consideration the at least $500 million that we expect in deferred maintenance that the park needs. So.
Katie McDonald is president and CEO of Forever Balboa Park, the nonprofit that raises money from philanthropists to support the park. The group opposes paid parking, but recognizes the city has to find money somewhere. The park needs new bathrooms, tree maintenance. There's even a former landfill on the park's East Mesa that the city hopes to clean up someday.
It's issues about roofs on all of these beautiful buildings. It's about making sure that the stucco is maintaining itself and not falling down. So there are millions and millions and millions of dollars of work that Balboa Park needs.
KPBS analyzed fix-it requests submitted through San Diego's Get It Done app. Balboa Park has roughly 500 open requests just related to transportation issues like broken sidewalks and curbs.
Very frequently, even during December nights, street lights are a big concern when it gets fairly dark in the park. So there's plenty of infrastructure where this revenue could be utilized to improve the park amenities.
The City Council is expected to vote on Phase 2 of the paid parking plan sometime in the fall. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Parking meter prices will be going up near Petco Park during special events starting next month, and that includes Padres games and other events expected to draw more than 10,000 people. The new special event zone is within half a mile of Petco Park. Here is how it would work. 2 hours before a Padres game, meter rates would go up from $2.50 an hour to $10 an hour, and that price lasts for 6 hours total. San Diego City Council President Joe LaCava says the goal is to reduce traffic congestion and generate revenue for the city.
We all know that when there's a special event, that the private parking lots dramatically increase their prices. The demand is high, the supply is limited, and so they adjust their prices accordingly. And so the city has never taken advantage of that kind of approach. So this is a first ever attempt.
And LaCava says the revenue from the parking meters must be spent on parking and mobility infrastructure within the special event zone. Parking at meters will still be free for drivers with disabled placards or license plates. The new meter rates begin on September 1st.
Well, tonight we're dropping down to the mid-60s once again. We'll see a little bit of a roller coaster with our temperatures this week. And the other thing you might have already noticed is the wildfire smoke coming from that Gifford fire farther to the north. A lot of that smoke has been working its way all the way down to Southern California. I'll break down exactly what to expect for the rest of the week ahead coming up.
The Marine Corps has changed its long-standing agreement with an Oceanside-based credit union following a KPBS investigation last year. Reporter Scott Rodd says the new contract gives Marine recruits more choice.
Our investigation revealed FrontWave Credit Union has had an exclusive arrangement with the Marine Corps for decades. The agreement funneled thousands of Marine recruits into the credit union every year in order to process their direct deposits during boot camp. KPBS also found FrontWave relies on overdraft fees charged to Marines and other customers as a key source of revenue. Following KPBS's reporting, a bipartisan group of U.S. Congress members, led by Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, launched an investigation. FrontWave's new contract with the Marine Corps requires more financial counseling offered to recruits and guarantees recruits the choice of their own bank or credit union.
I think there's no doubt that choice is valuable and people should be able to select the financial institution that they want to work with.
Bill Skimmyhorn is an associate professor of economics at William & Mary. He says these changes will only matter if the Marine Corps holds FrontWave accountable to the agreement.
You'll kind of now have to wait and see, does this seem to make a difference?
FrontWave declined an interview request. The Marine Corps did not respond to a request for comment. Scott Rodd, KPBS News.
President Trump says he will name a new commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the coming days. This after he fired the previous commissioner over an unfavorable jobs numbers report he claims was rigged. Brian Abel has more on why many experts are saying the reasons for the firing are baseless.
President Trump over the weekend saying that he fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics commissioner after that jobs report because he, quote, had no confidence, saying that the numbers that she put out in that report were, quote, ridiculous. He now says a new head of the Bureau will be announced in the next few days. Let's take a look at that jobs report. That was the origin of this. It showed 73,000 jobs added to the U.S. labor market in July and revised numbers for the previous months, showing dismal job creation. Those revisions are what the White House says it took issue with before firing the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Revisions, however, they are common. In fact, there was a substantial downward revision not long after President Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race last July. Now, Trump has suggested without evidence that Erica McIntyre rigged the jobs numbers in this most recent report, but a former BLS commissioner says that's not possible.
The commissioner doesn't do anything to collect the numbers. The commissioner doesn't see the numbers until Wednesday before they're published. By the time the commissioner sees the numbers, they're all prepared. They're locked into the computer system.
And Beach went on to say that he believes Trump's actions on this undermine the credibility of the agency for future reports. At the White House, Brian Abel reporting.
President Trump's domestic agenda would add more than $4 trillion to the federal debt over the next decade, and that is according to a Congressional Budget Office analysis released today. The big, beautiful bill includes sweeping tax cuts, but according to the CBO, those savings are outweighed by the cost. The increased borrowing will add nearly $720 billion in interest. It also balloons the deficit by $3.4 trillion by the year 2034. At a time when digital media is taking over print publications, the New York Post is expanding out west. News Corp, an ownership company, made the announcement today. The California Post will be based out of Los Angeles and will replicate the gossipy writing style of the New York Post that the New York Post is known for. It will include news, entertainment, and sports reporting with a Golden State focus. It will also include a daily print version. Lived Experiences is a nonprofit that two brothers started in a church basement and then took on the road, bringing food and services to North County communities. Now they have a new home, and KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says the brothers have big dreams for the future.
Dreams come true. Yeah, so this is a long time coming. And so we started at the bottom of a church with the same idea that we could have a space, a safe space to provide love, peace, opportunity.
Oscarina and Lalo Ortega used to organize mobile food distributions and hauled a free laundry trailer to different communities.
Before, it would have to be one day in Carlsbad, one day in Oceanside. We would have spread ourselves out thin.
Now, those resources are being offered at Lived Experiences' physical location in Oceanside.
People can come by, do some laundry, play some loteria, some Zumba classes. It's great, you know?
Ortega says he and his brother want to create a community space, especially for the youth.
There's a lot of things that we grew up without, you know. A lot of times we didn't have food. We never had washers and dryers, mentors. These things mean a lot to us.
They had hoped to add more computers for kids and resources for the community, but their funding has hit a bump in the road. Ortega says they were expecting a $150,000 grant from the Latino Coalition, but it got rescinded in the last federal budget.
We call ourselves the richest, brokest nonprofit, you know, out there. The money that we do get is just going right back into the community.
For now, they are relying on community support from people like Henry Ocampo, a lowrider bike enthusiast.
So we're trying to figure out ways to just build bikes, have kids come in, get them off the streets, get them to do something positive, and, you know, show that our community can do something beautiful, something that shines, something that's, you know, eye-catching.
The bikes are also available for the public to rent as a way to generate income for the center. And there are services like a diaper bank.
And I would say it's very helpful because you never know what people are going through, and to know that they have a place like this, it's awesome. You don't see this everywhere, and like I feel like back in the days when I was a child, there wasn't any stuff like this.
The center is open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on North Redondo Drive in Oceanside. The brothers' goal is to offer more classes and resources to their North County communities.
The way we see ourselves is there's Boys and Girls Club, there's YMCA, and then there's lived experiences. So we want to definitely not be competitive, but we want to be a natural kind of resource center for others and natural support system for the communities.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Texas Democrats attempt to block a Trump-backed redistricting plan by leaving the state. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A new development proposed by the city of San Diego could dramatically transform the college area. It is the first update to the community plan for the area in 3 decades. The plan aims to create a mixed-use campus town atmosphere with wider sidewalks, bike lanes, and public gathering spaces. It would also add room for up to 18,000 homes over the next 30 years. You can submit feedback to the city on their website, sandiego.gov/planning. Now, for our next story, do not adjust your television set. As part of our Public Matters initiative, we have this San Diego 101 episode shot in retro style. Voice of San Diego reporter Bella Ross explains why housing is so hard to build.
Many years ago, when North Park was still affordable and it was legal to drink on the beach, San Diego didn't have a housing crisis as we understand it today, but it was taking root below the surface.
Much of the reason it's so hard to build housing today goes back to the zoning decisions of yesteryear, when developable land was plentiful.
Unfortunately, that is no longer the case. This wouldn't be an issue if people just stopped coming here, but for the last 3 decades, the region has consistently added more jobs than it has homes. Combine that with today's high labor and material costs, building regulations, and anti-housing sentiment, and well, you have a housing shortage. How do you feel about the housing crisis?
Oh, I love it. I mean, can you believe what I get away with charging these people?
Housing costs are so high that they might actually lead to a population decrease for the first time in decades, but that won't be enough to get us out of this mess. We need to build more homes, but to do that, we need to understand why they're so hard to build in the first place. San Diego passed its first zoning ordinance in 1923, and it was basically a thinly veiled mechanism for racial segregation. This ordinance determined what could be built where, and it strongly favored single-family homes over apartments and townhouses. This has barely changed over the last 100 years. More than 3/4 of the region's residential land is still zoned for single-family houses. On top of this, San Diego faces unique geographic constraints that limit our ability to sprawl. Our options are basically to build east or build up, but sprawl has its own issues, such as wildfires and long commutes that are bad for the climate. The truth is, if we want to house more people on less land, we need to embrace more multifamily housing, like apartments and townhouses. Now, we could change zoning laws to allow apartments in more areas, but you'll have to take that up with the NIMBYs. How do you feel about more apartments in this neighborhood?
What? They're going to be building more apartments in this neighborhood?
Who are you calling?
My yard sign guy.
stands for Not in My Backyard, and it's a nickname for property owners who fear that new housing could reduce their property values, create congestion, and really just compromise the vibes at large. And they hold a lot of political influence. Construction costs have skyrocketed over the past few years for reasons I'm sure you've heard before. Supply chain issues, labor shortages, tariffs, general political uncertainty.
Yeah, so I'm finally a homeowner. It's just gonna be me, my boyfriend, my best friend from college, her boyfriend, this horse, and some guy from Craigslist. The best thing, the house is only 45 minutes from the beach.
Interest rates have also been really high, which makes it difficult to get loans to build stuff, unless you're a large corporate developer. This makes it very hard to build any truly affordable housing. Without government subsidies, there's really only one way to do it. You build a lot of expensive apartments in the same building, and then use those higher rents to make up for the lower rent revenue from the affordable apartments. San Diego requires at least 10% of apartments in new developments to be affordable, but we still got a long way to go before we meet demand. Building regulations are important to ensure new developments meet certain community needs, but too much regulation can slow building down to a halt. It's classic capitalism. Since 1970, the California Environmental Quality Act has helped ensure that new buildings are made sustainably, but it was just massively overhauled because it also made it very easy for anti-development groups to kill projects, which stunted housing production across the state for years. There are also requirements like parking minimums. Even just a few spots can add tens of thousands of dollars to the cost of a building. Or the double stairwell requirement, a fire safety rule that doesn't actually make buildings safer, but it does make them harder to build, more expensive, and uglier.
If they gave me the keys, I could solve the housing crisis like that.
And how would you do that?
Let me show you. I think that's my favorite part.
Total deregulation clearly isn't the answer, unless, of course, we want a whole bunch of other problems. But adding a certain amount of flexibility to the development process could go a long way towards helping us meet our housing needs, which we are currently nowhere near doing. The important question here, really, is how do we get people housed and keep them there? Part of the affordability issue is simply supply and demand. We don't have enough housing, and we need to build more of it. And every neighborhood in the city will have to do its part. Cities could also save a ton of money by simply helping people pay rent, which is far less costly than paying to get them off the streets. And tenant protections are another useful tool for keeping people housed by preventing displacement. There are also a few corners of the market that might benefit from more regulation, such as short-term vacation rentals and corporate mega landlords.
I don't know anything about the price-fixing algorithm, okay?
I didn't say anything about a price-fixing algorithm.
Cut the cameras, cut the cameras.
And KPBS and our Public Matters partners recently did a deep dive into where housing is being built and where it's not. Check out the series at kpbs.org/Whose Backyard. The Navy is launching a safety awareness campaign to curb a trend of children falling out of windows at military housing communities. Doctors at Rady Children's Hospital told our media partner KGTV that in the past 2 months, 2 children have died and another suffered a concussion in window falls at military housing. Lori Lynn is the manager of injury prevention programs at Rady, and she says in the past 2 years, 58 kids have been rushed to the hospital.
Because it's such a simple thing you can fix. You can get lots of easy, non-screw-in safety devices from your local Amazon or anything else.
Few details have been released about the recent falls. The latest happened at Liberty Military Housing in Murphy Canyon and left a child with a concussion. A spokesperson says the company is deeply saddened by the tragedies and has been working proactively to stop the falls. Turbulence is one of the most common airline accident types today, according to the National Transportation Safety Board. And just last week, more than 24 people were hurt after a Delta flight hit severe, unexpected rough air. Michael Yoshida explains how new technology could help make for smoother flights.
The Federal Aviation Administration says that turbulence is the leading cause of injuries to flight attendants and passengers in non-fatal accidents, with tens of thousands of instances of moderate to severe turbulence impacting aircraft in the U.S. every year. Experts we spoke with say the reason for the rise in this turbulence, warming temperatures on Earth.
25 people taken to hospitals after a Delta flight experienced severe turbulence, causing service carts and unbelted passengers to hit the ceiling and forcing an emergency landing.
Today, there is 41% more severe clear air turbulence in the skies over the USA, 55% more over the North Atlantic.
Atmospheric science professor Paul Williams says Earth's warming temperatures are making flying conditions worse. That's especially true along busy flight paths, which are near powerful winds in the upper atmosphere called jet streams.
Climate change is warming the air to the south of the jet stream a lot more rapidly than the air to the north of the jet stream.
Williams says the clashing of increasingly warmer and cooler air is causing more frequent and more severe clear air turbulence, which can't be seen on radar and isn't connected to other visual cues like storms or clouds, meaning it can seemingly hit out of nowhere.
A stronger jet stream has what we call more wind shear in it. That's the wind speed increasing with altitude, and more wind shear equals more turbulence. So that's the link from temperatures to the jet stream, to the winds, to the turbulence.
According to the National Transportation Safety Board, between 2009 and 2018, flight crews had no warning in about 28% of turbulence-related accidents. Williams, who has studied the topic for more than a decade, says the numbers will keep going up. Still, he and others say flying won't be any less safe, and new technologies could help, from better forecasting models to even artificial intelligence.
And Williams and other experts we spoke with say while in the future these new technologies, including artificial intelligence, could help with turbulence right now, the best thing you can do to stay safe, keep that seatbelt on while seated. In Washington, I'm Michael Yoshida reporting.
Well, we're looking at a little bit of a roller coaster with our temperatures this week. We'll see a little bit of a warming trend starting tomorrow. This is going to lead to extreme heat warnings by midweek for our desert regions. That's going to extend a couple of days through the mid to end of the week. But also, we have increased fire danger. It's that time of year now. We're dealing with wildfire smoke from some ongoing fires farther to the north, and then that increased fire danger for some of us in Southern California as well. Let's start off with temperatures for tonight, though. We're in the low 60s along the coast in Oceanside, mid 60s in San Diego. We're at 74 by the time we get to Borrego Springs. Looking ahead to tomorrow, well, you guessed it, Borrego Springs in the triple digits here. We're at 90 in Escondido, 75 for San Diego. Some coastal clouds overall, but otherwise we are just looking at plenty of sunshine. Now here's what I was talking about with the smoke. So it's the Gifford fire that is in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties, but the smoke is getting all the way down even into parts of Mexico. Now it's really just hazy skies that we're dealing with, not necessarily air quality impacts, but just a heads up that if you look outside, especially sunrise, sunset, it looks a little hazy. That is why. And this is coming along with an increased fire danger for more of us. This does not extend all the way to the coast, but a lot of our inland and desert regions are going to be dealing with that moderate risk for fires. So it's just that time of year. You got to make sure you're taking those precautions to avoid accidentally sparking something. Taking a look at our 5-day outlook here. Here's the little bit of the temperature roller coaster I was talking about. Not too pronounced at the coast. We get to 81 and then cool back down into the weekend. Further inland, though, we get to 85 by the time we get to Thursday. Start to even out as we head into the weekend. Taking a look at our mountain regions, we don't see too much of a warm up during the week. It actually extends into the weekend here. We get to the mid 80s by the time we get to Saturday. We're staying in the 70s really for most of the week. But then in our desert regions, you can see why the extreme heat warnings will start to go into effect midweek. We get to 115 by the time we get to Thursday. It's going to be hazy because of the smoke. It's going to be sunny and it is going to be hot. So make sure you're staying safe. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
Comic-Con Museum recently opened an exhibit called Blood, Sweat, and Myth, dedicated to Mexican Lucha Libre. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando takes us inside for a look.
Wrestling is wildly popular in both Mexico and the U.S., but in Mexico, it goes even further. Lucha Libre, with legendary wrestlers like El Santo, is deeply ingrained in Mexico's national identity and popular culture. Comic-Con Museum honors that rich tradition with its exhibit, Sangre, Sudor y Mito, or Blood, Sweat, and Myth. When the exhibit opened in May, Mexican professional wrestler Thunder Rosa was on hand to inspire young fans and to unveil some of her spectacular costumes, one even stained with blood. Her strong presence in the exhibit reminds visitors that wrestling is not exclusive to men. The exhibit also celebrates the powerful legacy, cultural symbolism, and larger-than-life spectacle of Mexico's legendary professional wrestling tradition. You can enjoy the exhibit through the end of the year at the Comic-Con Museum in Balboa Park. And if you want to see the great El Santo himself on the big screen, the Frida Cinema in Orange County is running a film series called Santo Sundays through September. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And here is what the KPBS newsroom has for you tomorrow. Under President Trump's immigration policies, thousands of workers have lost legal status and authorization to work. As NPR's Morning Edition found, those who remain on the job are feeling their absence. And is thinking about the future of our nation stressing you out? KPBS Midday Edition is bringing together a panel of therapists to talk about how to better manage anxieties brought on by this political moment. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.